Of the Raw Men, and this time Lalandra and I are interviewing Mandisa Thomas, who is what are you hosting? Are you I think that's the right word. Is that you're hosting the Women of Color Beyond Belief conference upcoming in about a month's time in Chicago,
Yes.
Illinois? Is that correct?
Yes, I am one of the hosts and I am the primary conference organizer. So, yes, I have a huge role in this event and I'm very much looking forward to it. Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening.
I would like to say that any donations that come in the super chat will be going to this particular conference.
Thank you very much. And we, again, hope that you support it. Happy to have Lalandra as one of the speakers for this monumental event. And Aaron will be attending, as now been put to work. So this will be awesome. And any donations will go towards that work. So just FYI.
So tell me a bit about this conference. What you got lined up? What are we expecting?
Yes. So first, I need to go into a bit of background as to how it came about. It was initially the concept by Sakivu Hutchinson. For those of you who aren't familiar with her, she is the author of such books as Moral Combat and White Knight's Black Paradise, which is a novel about the Jonestown tragedy. She's also the founder and leader of the Black Skeptics Los Angeles group, as well as the Women's Leadership Project. And she's written for the Humanist Magazine and Huffington Post, etc. So after the Secular Social Justice Conference last year, and after the feature in the Humanist Magazine, which was a cover story about 5 fierce humanists, in which myself, Sakivu, Bridget Crutchfield, otherwise known as Bria, who we all know, Candace Gorham, and Liz Ross were featured on the July-August 2018 issue of the Humanist Magazine. We were talking one day, and Shakibu was saying that she wanted to put together, a conference for women of color who were, secular. And so I said, you know what? Let's do it. let's do it for as soon as we can. Because organizing is one of my specialties. And so, with the three of us, we came up with Women of Color Beyond Belief. It is the first conference of its kind because between the three of us, we have engaged enough women of color in this movement who have never been, brought together in the same space solely as speakers and organizers. And so what we have lined up is, first, there's going to be a reception. There's going to be a viewing of Sakibu's film based on her novel, White Knight's Black Paradise. And then that's going to be on the Friday before the main conference starts. There's going to be a number of speakers. There's going to be a number of speakers there, like I said, including Lalandra, and some panel sessions. And for Saturday night, there's going to be a red carpet divas ball, which of course everyone is invited to, but it's going to be that, that nightly banquet event that's going to have the be and spin or flavor to it. And both of you attended my 40th birthday party and back in 2016, 3 years ago. So if you were familiar with that at all, you kind of know how I like to do things, which is going to be fun.
I was not prepared for that because I come from, I don't know, a different sort of trailer park background. So when somebody invites me to a birthday party, I was not expecting a DJ and a bartender and the caterers and all of that. I was expecting a BYOB thing, and I feel hugely embarrassed walking in there with my own alcohol and everything. Oh, this is a classy establishment.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
that's been bothering me ever since that happened.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's fine. It was a very, very smooth situation that was taken care of. But yes, that'll be the type of stuff that we do after the formal events, which is cool. But yes, just continuing on that, there will be a DJ there, and we're just gonna have some fun. It's gonna be a celebration. It's going to be we're showing that even though there's still a ways to go when it comes to the equity and diversity in this movement, there has been progress. And part of that is because is in the existence of Black nonbelievers and also other organizations that focus on specific groups. And though some may argue against that, they argue against the need for it. When you look at your regular conference lineups, we're still very sparse. There may be like one or two of us that may be featured at any given event. But we've, like I said, we've engaged enough people in this movement to, first of all, have worked with a number of people from different backgrounds, specifically women, and it's time that people know the work that we're doing. And it's important it's important for everyone to see it and to hear from us, to hear our perspectives. It may be varied from what the usual voices may say, but it's important.
Well, I'm interested to hear that. Varied from what the usual voices may say. Can you give me a hint?
Well, yeah, sure. Usually you're white males and in some instances, white women. Because there are often times where, there are a lot of people in this movement, like I said, they talk about what the problems are, what the issues are, especially with certain people. But when it comes to actually supporting the voices that they're speaking of, that tends to be lacking. So there tends to be not as much putting their money where their mouths are as much as they should. Even though, yes, we contend that if we want it to happen, we'll have to be the ones to do it, which has always been my personal motto, because I'm not going to wait on anyone to, give us the space that we need. We'll create it and make sure that we work with folks to have it. And but also we understand that, again, the support is needed. So yes, it will definitely be it will, it's going to be very special, and we're excited about it.
This is going to be the first time I can remember being at a conference in Chicago. Strange. I seem to hit the same areas of the country over and over again, but for whatever reason, Chicago I'd never been to. I mean, not for a conference.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that odd? Yeah. And I understand Lalandra is probably fixated watching the chat, but honey, you want to say something to the audience?
Arn and I have been going to conferences, secular conferences for. Can you hear me?
I don't think we can hear you. Your mic might be on mute.
Okay. It isn't muted.
I
No,
think
it's
her
not
mic
muted.
is muted. Uh-oh.
I can hear her.
Oh,
you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, let me see if there's something I can adjust.
Does anybody in the chat chime in whether you can hear Lalandra? Yep. There's somebody can hear you.
Then what is going on with mine? I don't know what's going on here.
Is it possible?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Is it possible, Mandisa, that you might have her muted on your end? I don't.
No,
this is a new system for us. I don't know if that can happen.
Nope.
Yep. But they're saying they can hear.
Okay. Well, if they can hear, then that's fine.
Oh no.
I mean, as long as they can hear everyone, then that's good.
Okay. Arn and me have been going to secular conferences for about 10 years. And
okay, so what is she saying now?
Okay, yeah, there's she said that her and I have been going to secular conferences for about 10 years,
and often you'll see a panel that asks.
And I'm pretty sure that there may be some of the same things. She's noticed a lot of the same things that I have.
There may be a panel dedicated to asking why there aren't more people of color at at atheist conferences, but there was never anything like this where the specific focus was featuring people of color.
She said that there may have been conferences that haven't focused precisely on this, but have been in the general ballpark. I'm paraphrasing that badly because I don't remember it verbatim. I apologize.
No problem.
I wonder what the problem is.
Yeah, I can't figure that out either, because on this system there shouldn't be a way that Mandisa would have you muted for her, and if she can hear me, she should hear you, and I don't get this. Strange.
Yeah.
So the people in the chat can hear me?
Well, if you could just let me know when it's my time to speak, because I don't want to overtalk anyone. Oh no, that's totally fine. If Lulandra has anything else to say, then that would be perfect.
All right. Quiet. He just starts screaming my name when he doesn't get enough attention. Anyway, Lalandra, Mandisa asked if there was anything else you wanted to say, and then I'll have to repeat it back to her.
And I think it would be great rather than just a question, just an one-off question, that there's a whole, all the time is reserved to listening to different people's stories.
Yeah, she said it would be great to have this opportunity for everybody to be listening to everyone's stories.
Yes, and there will be a number of topics covered. Lalandra will be covering, reproductive rights, particularly for women of color, and how the evangelicals are affecting that. We will have overcoming domestic abuse and domestic violence without religion, coming out as atheists, and also just the general, acceptance of our position. Someone will be talking about secular organizing in this movement, secular parenting, end of life choices, also like sexuality, body positivity, and criminal justice reform, and how that pertains to also progressive measures when it comes to criminal justice. And I'm excited.
You bring up these topics, and one of them, obviously, I mean, the racism and the police brutality. I remember being a very little boy, in the 1960s, and hearing all over the news about police brutality. And it's frustrating that that's still an issue, because every other thing in your list are topics that were never even considered to be discussed 20 years ago. These were unheard of. Every other thing that you just mentioned.
Right.
So those are all new. Will you be quiet? No, he will not be quiet. Unfortunately, he does this in my videos too when I try to record, and he decides that once the lights and the recorders go on, he needs to start making noise.
Oh, okay. I knew he was going to steal the show, but that's okay.
Yeah, I was worried it was worse than this. Just before I chimed this in, he was screaming my name. I'm like, well, we can't have that.
Oh. But yes.
So is there anything else we need to cover on that?
Well, yes, I'm very, very excited about how this also, there have been a number of things that, myself, Bria, and Sakibu have just encountered in this movement in particular. And I know Lalandra has as well. It's a celebration of, our work and our bond that, that we've cultivated in this movement, and also in building up particularly the Black atheist demographic, and, engaging and encountering other people of color, especially women of color. So this is really, it really is an acknowledgement of how, of the work that we are doing.
Let me ask you about that. You mentioned the Black atheist demographic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking that's got to be that's got to be a small number. I would have think that you have all 5 of them.
There's obviously more of us. There's obviously more of us if we're putting on this conference. But yeah, it's and
Well,
actually
that's very encouraging to hear.
yes, and what was significant about that is, there were actually like Sakiba was involved in the movement before I got involved. At the time that that I became, that I engaged the movement, Sakibu was already on the scene. You had Ayanna Watson with Black Atheists of America. Alex Jules was already, on the scene. There were a couple of others that were, pretty prominent, at the time. So, I definitely wasn't the first. And I was actually excited to see that there were more of us out there. The difference is, though, there's a like with many groups, even within the secular movement, there's a large concentration of people who are online. And, so there's a difference between what we see on the internet or the interwebs and then in what we see in person. Now, there are other organizations and entities who've been throwing events. They've been putting together conferences and stuff way longer than we have. And so, of course, they have that foundation of people who will regularly attend their events. And most of them do, while we see that that's changing, it's still, overly predominantly white. And so it became important. It was important for us, and we've done a few major events over the years. We put together the Blackout Secular Rally along with Black Atheists of America in 2013 in New York City, and then we also held our 5th anniversary celebration in Atlanta in 2016 at the same hotel, ironically, and that was another classy and fun event. So. And then in that time, we've been able to, just cultivate and develop the organization, as well as get a number of people, particularly from the Black atheist demographic and other atheists of color, to start attending events, because the representation said something. The representation was important. Who was speaking, who was presenting, and the work that was being presented, it made a difference. And also to help recruit, for lack of a better word, and develop new leadership. And I'm happy to say that in the past 8 years that Black NonBelievers has grown. We started in Atlanta in 2011. We're now up to 15 affiliates. And so
That's the
there
next
has,
thing I was going to ask you. Tacking on to
yes.
the last question, just asking about the representation of the demographic. I mean, what kind of numbers are we talking about nationwide?
Well, we're still working on, what those numbers look like, because according to the last Pew Research study, 79% of the Black community still identifies as religious. Now, there's also been studies to show that, Black millennials in particular are leaving religion, or leaving traditional religion, even if
Is this
they aren't.
consistent with the rest of the millennial estimates on how fast that generation in total is leaving religion?
It is part of it, but there's still, the numbers of religiously identified Black folks are still staggeringly high. And however, we do see that that's changing. And I actually had a conversation with some folks at Pew Research. They're coming up with another study on religion and Black life, because it's, we pretty much can surmise that those numbers are probably not as high, but the way the questions may be answered, or the may be presented, may prevent people from responding in a way that they would feel comfortable openly identifying as atheist, agnostic, humanist, etc. So we're still working on that. We're still working on what those numbers look like, because really, as a demographic, we knew that there were more out there But as far as being visible, that's a different story. And so that does, tend to, skew the numbers a bit.
To my experience, it's always hard to represent, or it's hard to determine what your actual atheist demographic measures up to. I mean, even in Saudi Arabia, where where it's a crime to be atheist, there's still reports that substantial numbers of people are pulling away from the religion. Now, how they determine that, I don't know, but they said so in one of their national stories. So it's apparently it's a news item for them.
Correct. And I see some folks in the chat who are asking why put labels? Why are we, why are we classifying as race and such? And this is always something that we deal with. But when you don't have to, when first of all, when you don't come from a certain demographic or a certain community where religion is extremely, I mean, we have an issue with, religious fanaticism and the evangelicals, period. But when we're talking about the institutional factors pertaining to communities of color and how pervasive religion is, and as well as the representation within the secular community, there is a need for us to identify that, yes, that there are Black folks who are atheists. We're coming out, we're organizing, and that there are more of us than people realize. And that the representation needs to change. And it is changing, because when we engage folks who say, wow, I thought I was the only one out there, we have to use the tools that unfortunately were kind of given to us, because yes, ideally we can say, and we know that race is a social construct, it's a racist construct. And we weren't the ones who created it. But in the context of how we need to identify, we have to use it.
Yeah,
and so there's just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to mention that what I meant, Ayana, that you just mentioned a little bit ago. Am I remembering her name correctly? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, we had an interview with her, and she was talking about how, and I noticed that somebody else said this in the chat too, that being Black and overtly Christian is, and I think a number of people have said this, including some celebrities, it would imply that you have little memory of your natural history.
Well, yes, that is a quote from Chris Rock. I'm not sure how totally accurate that is, but yes, we have to take into consideration the factors that come along with being Black in this country, and being religious is part of it, but also how the religion was imposed. Even though it didn't affect us completely, there are still a lot of white folks who are believers, astronomically. But yes, when it comes to communities of color, and when it comes to other institutional factors such as racial injustice, as well as other forms of injustice, there's that extra added baggage. And there are some folks who may not have ever had to deal with it or even consider it, because we never fail to encounter folks who never had to consider the Black experience or the experience of other people of color. And that's okay if you didn't know. But
it's still embarrassing. I mean, I can remember myself thinking that, okay, well, Barack Obama's president now, and one of my Black friends was saying something very similar about that. It's like, okay, well, finally we're there. And so he and I, at least the only justification I've got is one of my Black friends was sharing the same opinion, that, oh yeah, we're finally there. And then realizing like 16 minutes later that no.
Yes.
We saw
that actually resulted in more KKK chapters.
Yeah, and someone in the chat said that we aren't a monolith, and you are absolutely correct. The Black community is not a monolith. We never have been. And guess what? That's one of the reasons why Black NonBelievers as an organization exists, to show that we've never been a monolithic community, that religion does not define the entire Black community. And there are some white folks, even if they don't want to admit it, they perceive Black folks, most Black folks, to be religious, or all Black folks to be religious, just like other Black folks do. But this is the perception that we're in. And not even just the perception, it's through our actions, and definitely through our visibility. So yes,
Can you
we
hear
are
me
in
now,
complete agreement.
Mandisa?
No,
Can
she
you?
can't. She
No,
can't hear you, Lalandra. Still,
that's so weird.
yeah. Lalandra's
Um.
been fiddling with her audio settings to try to be heard.
Okay, but yeah, it's her turn to talk now. So
Okay. On the why do you have a label? Why do you need a label? We were just talking about how the Black community, at least, is largely religious. So there needs to be a community for these people to go to that replaces the religious community. They have specific needs. So why, like, it's like if you were to have a community of like-minded people with the same struggles in anything.
Yeah, Lalandra was explaining to the audience that there needs to be a community for people to go to, and that's one of the reasons for doing this, for all of the things we were talking about. Just
right, and it doesn't mean that it has to be the only community, because one of the things that we encourage is collaboration, collaborative efforts. So, if there are atheists, no matter who they are, in your area, it's good to get to know them and who they are. It doesn't mean that we'll agree on everything, because this too, Aaron. There are a lot of things that many of us do not agree on, and that's okay. The dissent is fine. It's when people seem to turn a willful blind eye to what others go through is what the problem is. Because no matter what, even though, yes, we have come to this conclusion, or most of us are still, and some still struggling with it. All right. But to ignore that, that different different demographics and different identities are affected in different ways, is to, that is going to be a hindrance to our progress.
well, I wish I could figure out what the audio issue is for why Mandisa can't hear.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
No.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
very
Yay.
Yay.
Someone said to log out and log back in, so that's what I did.
Okay.
Cool.
So contribute your portion to the show, Lalandra, on the spot now.
My experience going to conferences, at first, a lot of it was focused on science and skepticism talks. And there would be a diversity talk, and sometimes there would be panels on diversity, and not one of those people was like a person of color. So like I don't. We have a tendency to want to always volunteer our opinions on topics, but isn't it better to get an opinion from someone who actually experiences the thing you're talking about? And, right. And also, I think it's interesting to listen to the stories of our fellow sisters and brothers in humanism. They have an interesting perspective. Like a lot of people tell their coming out stories, atheist stories, in at conferences, and that's one of the great reasons to go, is to socialize and be with like-minded people. But then it's an added element to listen to a different perspective of your own than your own. Like listening to Mandisa's story. I mean, she has lots of stories. Like one time, I think she was in Atlanta, right? And someone in the hotel lobby gave you a hard time for being a Black atheist.
Oh yes, that was in Atlanta. 3 years in 2015. Now 4 years ago.
It's not simple to be a Black atheist in the community in general, because you're a double minority, and you don't have that built-in church community that's in the center of a lot of neighborhoods, and also it's inside the Black community too. You have people like Steve Harvey that are always joking about how terrible atheists are, and there are all these stereotypes. And so that's why there's a need for Black non-believers too, to overcome these stereotypes, to speak for Black non-believers, tell their stories.
Yeah.
Like everybody stopped. I feel like the feed stopped.
No.
Okay. But that's the point of the conference too, is to why just ask the question, where are the minority atheists?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you build it, they will come. So build the conference, build the community. They will come if you welcome them. I think people are more likely to come to a conference if they're minority, if there's minority speakers there, and they're showing an interest in them being there. Because I'm biracial. I'm half Vietnamese and half raised white Southern, and even for me, even though I'm used to being inside of white communities like Southern Baptist churches, there's always this element, whether they mean to or not, of reminding you you're not white. So it's nice to go places where it's not even a thing, really. You're just, you're just you. And unfortunately, it doesn't always happen. And sometimes that even happens in atheist gatherings when there aren't enough people of color there. Right? They say something off-putting. Like they make jokes. I went to one. And Mandisa was there, and we were bagging. For the homeless these meals and stuff, and someone made a joke right next to us about Asians. So, it was me and another Asian-looking person across the table from me, the only two that were noticeably Asian in the whole place. And so,
yeah,
it's not that I can't take a joke. It's just I've heard all of your jokes many, many times.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
And there's a couple classics we'd rather not hear again.
Exactly. And it is okay for us to let people know that, the privilege and, the jokes, they need to go away. Of course, there are some things that I think in our community, it's okay for us to let our hair down and say, but especially as because we're asked, well, where are all the Black atheists, or how can we increase our diversity and inclusion efforts? I mean, we are asked these questions. And so when we give first of all, it's not always our responsibility to always be the responsible parties for that, because it's almost like that becomes our responsibility. Like Alondra said, when there's always the few people of color that attend these events, there's a tendency, even if they aren't ill-intended, to try to solve, those issues. Those issues are to be resolved by us. We're supposed to be the ones who are doing this on our own and giving the answers. And that just shouldn't be the case. It's going to take a collaborative effort. It's going to take a lot of people re-examining their positions. We're a community that prides ourselves on information, evidence, verification, but we tend to apply that towards religion and belief in God and nothing else. And that is because I think that it takes for people to, again, examine a lot of the things that they've been doing. And, self-examination on any level can be hurtful, or it can be humbling. But guess what? It's necessary.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I came from a very embarrassing past that I'm not remotely proud of. I was raised by very closed-minded people. And although a lot of what they tried to teach me did not stick, I still came away with some stereotypes that once I got into college, I was able to see that everything I'd been taught about, like this country, for example, or whatever, or this other ethnicity, whatever, the Muslims, pick your category. All these things that I'd been taught by my insular little family were just stereotypes based on nothing. And so that was a painful growing period, realizing how wrong I was because of how wrong my family had raised me to be, and then coming out of that, where at least the only thing I can brag about that is that at least I came out of that.
Right.
A lot of people didn't.
Right.
And that's the point of a conference, or inviting people of color as speakers, so that we can kind of work past these cultural barriers we have with each other and unlearn some things. Like some of the questions I've heard people ask Black speakers, I don't know if Mandisa wants me to tell a story, but
Oh no,
it's
please do, because I have a few as well. Oh my god.
because someone asked her, and she was talking about making a hospitable community because she has experience in the hotel industry, and someone asked her what could be done about Black on Black crime
In Chicago. I
in
mean,
Chicago.
yeah, particularly in Chicago. And
Yeah.
it was so interesting because the perspective wasn't based on anything that this person had done any research on. It was reading headlines and just all of a sudden asking the question, knowing that it wasn't the appropriate venue for it. And yeah, so yeah, these are the types of questions that we are asked at, and it was so overwhelming, and it was interesting to see a very popular blogger at the time berate Bria because she responded to the person, and she said that the question was racist, because it was. And you could see like the entire audience was almost, they were mortified. And they were like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this person asked the question. But also part of correcting that is going to take for some other white folks to check their own. It's like, hey, this was a fucked up thing to do, and you need to fix it.
Yeah. It's, I don't even get the context of it to even bring that up. And I don't think it's an appropriate question in general, because every racial group, we're still heavily segregated, no matter what the efforts have been since the 60s, at least in our neighborhoods. So, like, people have a tendency to commit crimes in their own communities.
Right.
Like, that's not the question of the century, anyways. So white people do white on white crime. So
Exactly.
As
Yeah.
somebody asked a question in the chat, let me see if I can find it to keep scrolling up. Does Mandisa plan to extend? The question keeps scrolling up before I can even read it. That's one of the problems I have with the system. Does Mandisa plan to expand to the south, or does she have a branch down here?
Well, Black NonBelievers is headquartered in Atlanta.
That's
This is
the
where I
south,
live.
isn't it?
It is the Bible Belt. So we got started in Atlanta. And if you go to our website, our latest affiliate was started, our newest affiliate was started in New Orleans. So, and we have groups in Orlando, where we have a group in Dallas. So we're kind of all over. And the unfortunate thing for the Black community in particular is that no matter where you go in the United States, even in my hometown of New York City, there's still a need for Black non-believers there, because the religious community runs rampant no matter where you go. And I saw someone ask the question they asked me to expound on the church, and the church and how the role it played in the Black community. And yes, that is also another institutional factor, because even though the Bible and other religious texts justified the enslavement of folks throughout the world, the church, and the Black church in particular, was responsible for starting many historically Black colleges and universities. So they were responsible for centers of education. They did provide support, especially when it was needed. They provided a sense of validation for many Black folks. So we do acknowledge the role that the church played as as far as the building, the people, as far as community. Do I think that it should be, do I think that the problem should be glossed over? Absolutely not. But we do acknowledge that. But that's also the reason why we have to talk about it, because these factors will not make, these factors play a huge role in, like I said, in the story of the Black community, and why it can be more challenging to openly identify as an atheist if you're Black or a person of color. And so, yes, absolutely, there's such an emotional tie to this institution within our communities that we're dealing with an uphill battle here. And but it's not so uphill that we haven't connected with others and that we haven't seen the work that others have done. And so in doing that, this is where, the Women of Color Beyond Belief Conference is going to be highlighting in particular. There's been women in secularism there, but that was put on by CFI. There's also been secular women work put on by secular women. And I just, we love that organization. We love the organizers, Monette and Stephanie Hay. But when it comes to actual women of color beyond women of color, this is the first initiative of its kind, and we're very proud of it. And I'd also like to say before we end that I think someone said it was too pricey. We do have student rates available, and the conference is very inclusive of meals as well. So taking that into consideration for the pricing, in case you were wondering.
Okay, very good. All right,
I wanted to make a quick point. Like, YouTube chat isn't like a lot of times a good indicator of real life, but catching up on some of the comments, like a lot of them are awesome. But there are people who aren't listening even though we're talking. So this is the kind of reception sometimes when we want to talk about sensitive issues, and people just keep saying, well, you just, how are we making you uncomfortable? And you can even say, what made you uncomfortable? And and they'll keep saying, they'll just keep getting really defensive. If in order to understand another person's perspective that's different from your own, you have to listen. You just can't keep telling them what their perspective is. No person of color at any conference is uncomfortable just because there's white people there.
Right.
That does not happen. We live in this country. It's people who tell the same joke over and over again that I've heard my whole life. People that keep asking me where I'm really from, and that doesn't happen as much it happens sometimes still, even at atheist gatherings. But it's just us needing to, like, I mean, everybody says, what if we just didn't talk about race or stuff like that? We can't, because it's still an issue whether you talk about it or not. And if we are all going to get along, then people are going to have to empathize and learn, to get along. Right now, it's not from the jump are we all going to get along. And it's just the reality of living in the United States with President Trump, and the number of people surprised that we could have this openly a racist president and haven't been paying attention. After Barack Obama was elected, the number of racist hate groups rose.
Oh, yes, they did.
Trump is almost a reaction to Obama. A lot of people decided they were Republican and voting for Trump after the election of Obama.
Yeah,
it's a reaction.
it does seem to be. All right, do you guys want to make closing arguments? I'm gonna close it up here. We're 45 minutes in. It's about when we usually end this, and I think we've covered just about everything. If I'm wrong, please continue talking, but otherwise, I'll let you make final comments.
I think we've covered everything. We hope that people go to the website, wocbeyondbelief.com. If you are in Chicago, we hope you check out the conference. There's going to be a lot of good information. I'd like to also shout out the Freedom from Religion Foundation, who is our largest sponsor to date. We appreciate their support. We appreciate everyone's support of this event. We could always use more. I'm not going to be shameless about that because it takes that support to put on the type of event, especially the type of event that we like to do. And if you've ever engaged Black nonbelievers, you know that, we are, and this is something that I'm not being defensive about. We are inclusive to everyone. It's no accident that, we have built and earned the love and respect of a lot of people. Because again, we encourage collaborative efforts. We're going to tell you what the issues are, and we're going to tell you how it is, but we're also going to work with you on them, and also helping to build, because we also, like I said, we tell the stories. Our members have shared their experiences and their stories, and you can see that on our website at blacknonbelievers.org. And also, we have built up a number of, of working relationships with good allies, because there are some people who say they're allies and their actions show anything but. However, I'm proud to say that we have connected with a number of good allies who respect and support our work, and vice versa. So very, very happy about that. And I'm excited. And we hope that y'all are excited about this event too. It's going to be phenomenal.
You want to give the time and place?
Yes. So it takes place from October 4th through the 6th, Friday through Sunday, first weekend in October in Chicago, Illinois, at the Chicago Marriott Midway Hotel, which is right by Midway Airport. It is... it starts Friday evening with a reception. All of the information is available on the website, wocbeyondbelief.com. And you can also find it again at blacknonbelievers.org. But yes, Friday, October 4th through the 6th, Chicago, Illinois. Be there.
Thank you very much, Mandisa Thomas.
I feel like I contributed to a book about women beyond belief, and the editor, not the editor of the book in general, the copy editor, like, I shared a critical story about race, and she said, "Can you also put something positive in the end there?"
Oh God.
So okay, so I feel like I'm giving the positive right now at the end here. That I've enjoyed many of my gatherings in the atheist community. It's one of the only communities I've ever known, because being biracial, you're not really welcome in white Southern communities. I mean, it wasn't too bad. I guess they didn't beat me up, but there are really great allies that would feel terrible that they made you feel uncomfortable and try not to make you uncomfortable. I mean, we don't want to be handled with kid gloves or anything, just, we would work toward that colorblind future where everybody's judged on the content of their character. Well, we would work with anybody on that. And this conference is to make women and people of color feel more welcome in the secular community, and I think that's a good goal for the community in general.
Very good.
Awesome. Someone asked if the student admission includes everything. It does. So it includes the corresponding events. It includes the reception and the ball. So yes, if you are a student and you are looking to attend the conference, I'd also like to plug the Secure the Bag meal packing event that will take place right after the plenary on Sunday, October 6th. We will be doing it. You don't necessarily have to be an attendee of the conference, but it does help. So we will be participating in a service project along with Foundation Beyond Belief that will benefit a local charity in the Chicago area that primarily services people of color. So if you want to sign up and have a good time and also do something else that will be impactful to our community, please do sign up.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, everybody in the audience. We will go ahead and close it up. Chicago, October 4th through 6th. Good night.
Yes. Good night.